Counting is underway in India after hundreds of millions of people voted in an election to decide who will form the next government in the world's most populous democracy. The National Democratic Alliance, or the NDA, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's nationalist BJP, is currently ahead in the count, but early trends indicate its victory will not be the landslide that had been forecast. The NDA appears on track to win about 290 of the 543 available seats. That's well past the 272 halfway mark that's required to win a majority in the Indian Parliament. The opposition India alliance, which includes the once dominant Congress party, is leading in around 230 seats. So Modi is essentially on course to retain power for a historic third term, but without the supermajority that he had aimed for. Let's get more from DW's Delhi Bureau Chief Sandra Petersman, who joins me now from Delhi. Sandra, what are these early trends essentially telling us?
They are telling us that the Indian voter remains to be pretty unpredictable, and also that the exit polls were seemingly far off the mark because they all had projected a thumping majority for the NDA led by Prime Minister Modi's BJP, and that doesn't seem very likely at the moment because, like you said, at the moment the NDA is hovering around 290, which would allow them, of course, to form a government because they have crossed the threshold for that, but it is a far cry from the supermajority that they wanted. And if we look at the margin for a two-thirds majority, that would be around 359 seats. This majority enables any alliance or party to change India's constitution, and they are far from that as of now. But then again, things can change quickly here, so we have to take these early trends with a pinch of salt as well.
But one thing is undisputable, and that is basically that if Narendra Modi were to form a government, he would be setting a new record, wouldn't he?
Definitely. He would be aiming for a third consecutive term, and he would only be the second Indian Prime Minister to do that after one of India's founding fathers, Jawaharlal Nehru. He was India's first Prime Minister, in fact, so Modi would be only the second one in India's post-independence history to achieve this, and he looks on track to do that, yet the majority will be diminished, and for him and his BJP, that might mean that they would have to compromise maybe a little bit more with their partners in the NDA alliance. Because if we look back at 2019, the BJP alone had won 303 seats. Right now, the BJP alone is at 240 seats. So, you know, they have lost as a party individually. And if we look at an interesting Indian state like Uttar Pradesh, with a population bigger than Brazil, if we look at only Uttar Pradesh, it sends 80 members of parliament to the national parliament here in Delhi. And in 2019, the BJP managed to win 62 of those seats in Uttar Pradesh. Now, it appears to be the case that they have lost about half of them. And that is huge because Uttar Pradesh is in the northern Hindi heartland, and everybody assumed that it would be a clean sweep for the BJP in Uttar Pradesh. And it seems to be the case that this hasn't happened.
You know, speaking about Uttar Pradesh, because I know that you were out on the campaign trail in Uttar Pradesh, and I just wonder if you can recount for us what the voters were telling you on the campaign trail when you were there.
I mean, when I was in Amethi and in Rabareilly, I was about to say former strongholds of India's famous Nehru Gandhi family, who is at the very heart of the Congress. Well, it seems to be the case that Rabareilly, which remained with the Gandhis in 2019, could be defended by Rahul Gandhi this time around. And in 2019, the other family stronghold in Amethi, that was lost to actually Smriti Irani, who happens to be India's Minister for Women, Children and the Elderly. And as it appears now, she has lost Amethi. So the BJP lost a very also symbolically important seat there, and it was regained by the Nehru Gandhi family. So that is huge. And what I could pick up on the ground was that there was a certain sentiment, anti-incumbency sentiment, that there was also voter apathy. And people there really told us over and over again that what they really want is help, because inflation can be felt on a day-to-day basis in their pockets. The high cost of living was affecting many people there, and also youth unemployment, a huge issue in a populous country, in a populous state like Uttar Pradesh. The youth appear to be quite restless, and a lot of young voters told me actually that they would abstain from voting, either that or would vote for the opposition to send a message to the ruling BJP.
We'll leave it there for the moment. I'm sure we'll be coming back to you soon. But thanks for the time being. DW's Delhi Bureau Chief Sandra Petersman reporting from Delhi. Thanks so much. DW reporter Nimisha Jaiswal joins me in the studio with more. You were hearing, Nimisha, what Sandra was saying there. You know, these issues of unemployment and price rise, does it look like these issues campaigned for themselves and influenced the voter, or would you give the opposition some credit?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Barish, because I was listening to Sandra and thinking about the fact that in 2019, I was on the ground hearing the exact same complaints. I came away from those reporting trips feeling, well, of course, the BJP will lose seats. Well, of course, a coalition will come in, but I was wrong. The BJP gained a massive seat share. And if you look at the vote shares, the percentages of the votes going to each of these parties right now, they are somewhat similar to what we saw the last time around, which honestly means that the coalition being able to pull together, to be able to rescue itself from the fragmentation of votes we saw in 2019, really explains why their numbers have doubled, which is so impressive. And honestly, I am surprised because I thought that the coalition was being slow, but they seem to have packed quite a punch.
But the coalition wasn't really working, right? When they announced the coalition last year, this is the India alliance that we're talking about, a coalition of, is it, what, 26 or 27? I keep losing count because some parties exited. For example, Nitish Kumar, who was the convener of this coalition, he left, went back to Bihar, apparently not doing so well, but that's another story. So that coalition at the outset wasn't working too well. What do you think has worked for it in the later stages of this 6-week-long election campaign?
I think the perfect answer would be with the BJP. And the reason I say that is because the reason people started believing that the tone was shifting against the BJP was the way they were campaigning. They came into this election really confident, but the tide seems to have turned during the course of voting. And that was really indicated by the fact that the BJP was taking on a very aggressive anti-minority tone, very obviously in its campaigning. And a lot of analysts said, why are they on the back foot? The BJP has historically a very strong on-ground presence. They know what's going on. And it almost seems like they were expecting that the tide was turning against them. And through the course of these votes, it really seems that that vote did seem to have shifted to the Congress and its allies. And we've, of course, seen the big gains in regional parties, but the Congress seems to have allied with the right regional parties that have made those massive gains compared to 2019.
Talk a bit about these regional parties, because they seem to be making a comeback of sorts, right? After being virtually wiped off the map in 2019, at least the parliamentary map and not so much the legislative map. That's another story.
No, exactly. And, you know, to get into the nitty-gritty is an hours-long conversation, of course.
But keep it surface.
Yeah, exactly. But if we often talk about the two big parties, right? We talk about the BJP and we talk about the Congress. They are still the two biggest parties in the parliament, if these trends are to be believed. But the regional parties may reflect the fact that voters may be tired of the BJP to a certain extent. They may not still have gained full confidence back in the Congress that was at the head of power for decades, but was voted out massively back in 2014, 10 years ago. 2019, it performed really poorly. And the confidence in regional parties is something that is a reflection of the fact that maybe the national parties are not as trusted in the regions. But again, both the BJP and the Congress pulling these regional parties into their coalition is a smart move. There is big gains on a southern regional party that the BJP will benefit from, for example. But most of these benefits do seem to be accruing to the opposition. And in the end, going forward, it looks like the opposition will be able to put up more resistance, will be able to prevent the BJP from seemingly steamrolling policies through that we saw in the last two sessions.
I do want to talk about what another Modi term potentially would mean for India. But just before that, I'd like to get a little nerdy, but not too completely nerdy. I'd like to stick with Uttar Pradesh that Sandra was also talking about. Why is Uttar Pradesh so important? And why is the fact that the opposition-led the India alliance is almost going neck and neck with the BJP-led NDA alliance in Uttar Pradesh? Why is that significant to the entire result of these Lok Sabha elections?
I mean, honestly, Uttar Pradesh, always fascinating, but I'm very surprised. It's seen as a bellwether state, it's seen as a swing state sometimes, but the BJP has had a stronghold on this state over the last 10 years, especially the local government or the state government is the BJP as well. And the Uttar Pradesh populace seems to vote very often along religious lines. But speaking of that, it seems that the appeal that the BJP was making through the construction of the historic Ram Temple, of the significant Ram Temple, does not seem to have pulled through as much. The city in which that temple was made, the BJP seems to be losing it. And the fact that somehow this, the anti-minority dialogue that I mentioned earlier, seems to have backfired, especially for the minorities themselves. They seem to be voting in favour of a regional party that is in coalition with the Congress. So that could be one of the reasons. And voter apathy does seem to play a role as well. And again, we saw voter turnout fall compared to the previous years, but that often goes either way in India. Sometimes it favours the incumbent, sometimes it favours the opposition. In this case, it does seem to be favouring the opposition.
When we're talking about the BJP traditionally relies on the so-called Hindi heartland states, essentially the states in the northern part of the country and some in the western part of the country, where the majority language is Hindi. They traditionally do well there. And UP is a part of that. So this sort of shows a trend, doesn't it, that what it had taken for granted as its support base can be dented when it comes to people's issues of unemployment and rising prices. Would that be a correct interpretation there?
No, absolutely. I think it definitely is safe to say that the Hindi belt has been a stronghold for the BJP, and they were trying very hard to make inroads into the south, as we saw Prime Minister Modi travelling to the south, visiting many temples, trying to appeal and say that he has a national broad appeal. But it is that assertion of the Modi guarantee that kept coming up again and again in the campaign. Everybody said, well, he's a man people believe in, he's a man people can fall behind, and he will come through. That seems to have not panned out the way that he was expected to. And like you said, the Hindi belt.
Has brand Modi been dented?
I would definitely think so, but I do not think the BJP will think so. I was watching Analysis in the Morning, as we do, as is a national sport in the country. And the BJP did come on air on multiple channels saying, this is too early to react. The Modi government will still form a third term. So this is a vote in confidence to the Prime Minister. But the fact that the BJP no longer has a clear majority, they're not even going past the halfway mark, is by any means, by any sides, a dent. But it's truly going to be a question of how humble will the BJP be in reacting to that vote.
Humility and the BJP, I think that's another discussion, isn't it? We'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks so much, Nimisha. Let's just take you to analyst Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, who joins me now from near Delhi. Nilanjan, if you can hear me, we were talking about Narendra Modi, and I just wanted your initial thoughts there as to, is this a denting of brand Modi, given the initial results that we are seeing right now?
Of course, this is a huge blow to Mr. Modi's image and popularity, because he had set a target for 370 for the BJP and more than 200 seats in Lok Sabha, along with his allies. In contrast to that, the BJP is not even well past the halfway mark at 272, almost 30 seats short at the moment, it looks, if the trends which are visible now, available now, becomes the actual reality, the verdict by late evening, then the BJP is going to be almost 30 seats short of a majority. So even if Mr. Modi becomes Prime Minister, he will be dependent. 10% of his coalition partners are going to be dictating terms to him, because they are the ones who would be able to ensure that the government stays in a majority. If they withdraw support, the government will become a minority and then fall on its own weight.
But is there anybody in that BJP-led coalition that has a bigger presence than Narendra Modi, even if the result is the way it is?
Well, if the things never go in favor of the big partner, then even the smallest of partners can actually, start being more demanding. And the first thing which is going to be demanded from Mr. Modi is that unlike what he's done from 2014 to 2024, that he will have to follow and embrace a more consensual style of politics. He will have to consult his coalition partners for key policy decisions. None of these things have been done. A very key institution of the National Democratic Alliance, that is the alliance of the BJP, did not have a formal meeting between 2019 and 2023 till when they finally had a meeting last year. So, and that too they had because the elections were coming close and the opposition was kind of grouping among themselves, trying to form an alliance, which eventually happened as what we are called the India bloc of parties. The process started then. So that is when actually Mr. Modi in last August, September, he started actually reaching out to various other political parties and trying to widen his coalition. Mr. Modi, right from his days in Gujarat, has never worked with any coalition partners. It's always been I, me, myself. So the big challenge is that does Modi have, we will definitely be forced to see a new Modi, and definitely all talk of a new India will be put on the back burner.
But we're going to have some sort of a new India, right? I mean, there is the economic agenda. There is a talk of land reforms, for example, and reforms to do with industry. And then there were talk of constitutional reforms as well. What do you think the priority will be moving forward, given that the results stay about where they are right now? And these are just early trends, just to be clear for our viewers. We're still waiting on final results. But if it is a coalition sort of politics with Prime Minister Modi at the head, what does the work look like for New India then?
Well, I think, the first real challenge for Mr. Modi, if he comes, with the present numbers, which is Mr. Modi at, his party at something around 240 odd seats, about 35 seats short of a majority, which would come from two major allies, one from the North Indian state of Bihar and the other from the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. They have two big alliance partners. Now, between the two of them, they would be having close to about 30 odd seats, on the basis of the trends at the moment. So they will be the ones who will have to endorse and say that, okay, that we are fine with these proposals. So those proposals, before it is brought before Parliament, will have to be cleared by the coalition partners. We do not really know that what all Mr. Modi is planning to do. He had actually directed all his bureaucrats and senior bureaucrats in the government to prepare a 100-day action plan for their departments. Now, I do not know if at that speed he will be able to roll out the policies within 100 days. So there is going to be, we will have to wait and watch a lot of things. There will be a lot of tightrope walking. And these are skills which Mr. Modi has never displayed so far because it was never required from him. He's always had a clear parliamentary majority, both in 2000 and in 2019. And even in Gujarat, when he used to rule the good state of Gujarat, he did it with an absolute majority.
You'll be joining us again in about 2 hours to talk a bit more about the kind of results that we're seeing. But we'll leave it here for the time being. Thanks so much for joining us, Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, political analyst.
Our correspondent Shalu Yadav is standing by at the BJP headquarters in Delhi. Shalu, what's the latest where you are?
Well, Gerhard, you can probably hear some music and cheer in the backdrop, but this is really just a blip on what we saw here in 2019 and 2014 when the BJP party led by Prime Minister Modi came to power with a resounding victory. If I can just give you a sense of what it was like back then, these lanes that you can see leading up to the party headquarters, that's the gate right there, were full of people. I mean, you could barely, get a step of space here, and there were, sweet celebrations demonstrations, and there were groups of people, who had taken over the roads leading up to the party. But here today we see traffic as normal. This really looks like, a reflection of, the disappointing numbers that have been coming in early trends. We hear latest is that NDA, the National Democratic Alliance, led by Prime Minister Modi's party, is almost touching 300 now, which is a very far cry from their claim of 400. Remember that the Prime Minister had made a claim of crossing 400 seats out of 543 this time during his election rallies. And as of now, they're nowhere near as close.
Yeah, you mentioned disappointing results. Modi's BJP is looking like it will do much worse than forecast. Why is that?
Well, the two big reasons that really stood out for us in our reporting over the last 2 months were unemployment, especially amongst the youth, and inflation. Even as India is, one of the world's largest, sort of fastest, major growing economies. But here people say that hasn't really reflected onto their lives, really, because the fuel and food costs have gone really high in the past few years. Unemployment remains a burning issue amongst the youth. As well as rural distress. Farmers have been, they're a major voting bloc, and they have been quite disappointed with this government because they haven't been able to meet the promise of doubling their incomes during their tenure.
Now, how will these results affect Modi's plans for a third term as Prime Minister?
The line got disconnected.
Okay, and we seem to have some trouble with the line there with Shalu. Thank you very much. So we can go straight over to Adil Bhatt. He is at the Opposition Congress Party headquarters in Delhi. Adil, what's the latest where you are?
Girard, you can hear the sound of drum, and you can also hear people in the background waving flags. And also there is jubilation, there is excitement, and there is anticipation. That's the mood in the Congress headquarters right now. To make it clear, Congress and its alliance partners, they don't have majority right now. They're not even close to the majority. But for them, it's a victory because they are able to stop BJP for getting a thumping majority of 400 magic number. So Congress workers here, they're telling us that it's already a victory for them. It's a rejection of Prime Minister Modi's divisive politics, and it's the win of Rahul Gandhi's catchphrase that save democracy and save the constitution. That's the sentiment in the Congress headquarters. They're saying that this kind of win will give them moral boost. It will help them to make preparations better for the coming elections. That's the sentiment with Congress workers here.
Now, what do these results mean for the Congress Party and the India alliance that it leads?
So this victory, it's not a victory yet, but they're claiming it's a victory because they say in the next 2 hours they're hoping they will get the victory. I'm talking about the Indian alliance, which is the grouping of more than 20 alliance partners. So they're saying that this victory, if they will get it, is about the revival of Indian democracy. It's about rejection of Modi's Hindu nationalism. It's about what Rahul Gandhi has been telling us during the march, that he has to save the constitution, and rejecting Modi's anti-hate speech against Muslim minorities. That's the sentiment. Congress workers here are telling us, even if they don't win, but still they will consider this as a victory.
So what should we be looking out for as the count progresses?
Right now, both BJP and its alliance partners, they don't have a majority right now. They are almost heading to majority, but they don't have it. And similar with the Indian alliance opposition parties. So we need to wait and watch for the next 2 hours what's going to happen. And we'll get a clear picture who's going to win, because right now nobody has a majority yet. And for Congress Party, they're hoping that the kind of campaigning they have run this time, they have a better chances as compared to BJP's divisive politics. That's what they've been telling us here at Congress headquarters. So that's why we see the celebration. Congress spokesperson, Congress top ministers are also pouring in here. They're talking to the media, saying that this is a rejection of Modi's Hindu nationalist politics. And this verdict will be about the save democracy and save the constitution.
DW's Adil Bath at the Congress Party headquarters.
At Delhi's iconic India Gate, people are desperately trying to relax. Many are exhausted by the scorching heat, almost 7 weeks of voting and weighty political messaging.
Yes, this year people are very tired because of the excessive heat. That is why voter turnout was low compared to the last general election.
The past election weeks saw intense political battling. One of the most active campaigners, the incumbent Prime Minister. Besides focusing on economic development, he also fired up his Hindu nationalist base by singling out the Muslim minority in attacks on his main political opponent, the Congress Party.
When they were in power before, they said that Muslims have the first right to the country's resources. So, who will they redistribute resources to? Those who have more children. Those who are infiltrators. Your hard-earned money will be given to infiltrators. Will you accept that?
Critics accuse him of anti-Muslim hate speech and of deepening India's religious fault lines. On the streets of Delhi, opinion is sharply divided.
Modi is my heart, he is my life, and I love Modi. There is no other leader in the country who has leadership qualities that Modi possesses.
Modi hasn't done what he had to do for the public and specifically for the youth. That's why people like us are very upset with him, and we don't know what our future will behold.
One of Modi's main challengers is Rahul Gandhi, the most prominent face of the Congress Party, which ruled India for decades.
This election is about those who are trying to destroy the constitution and destroy democracy in this country versus those who are trying to protect the constitution.
But many voters seem unconvinced he's the better candidate.
If you listen to Rahul Gandhi's speeches, you realize he lacks all the qualities of being a politician and leader.
Rahul Gandhi is a sweet guy, but when it comes to politics and being the Prime Minister of India, I think he needs to mature a bit.
Results are just hours away. It remains to be seen whether the BJP's religious rhetoric promoting Hinduism will be more convincing than the opposition's claim that Indian democracy is in danger. Most experts agree that a third consecutive term for Prime Minister Modi is still the most likely outcome.